I always wanted to grow a bigger business. And I have to say that as time went on and life went on, I just kind of took on more of a minimalist viewpoint. I have definitely changed what I view as success.
Welcome to the Flipstoration Podcast, where we talk shop, discuss business, and share our stories. Whether you are brand new to flipping furniture as a side hustle, a seasoned professional furniture restorer, or simply someone who loves podcasts, there's room for you at our table. Welcome to the Flipstoration Podcast.
Well, hey guys, welcome back to the Flipstoration Podcast. This is Gary, your host, and I wanted to talk to you today about, I get asked this a lot, and I felt like I would just make this a conversation we have today. But I get asked, if I was starting, my refinishing business specifically over again, if I was going to start from scratch and begin again, what are some things I would implement going forward? Like if I was starting again. And I have to say, I have some today that I think are going to be probably different than what you might be expecting. I think that I've lived a few lives within my life, and I feel that I have made some pretty big mistakes. I have made some pretty good choices. I've had the ups and downs. It's been the roller coaster, and I feel like there's a few big ones that I really want to share, and I can open up more about different things along the way. But yeah, let's get down to it, and let's just dive into some of these different things. So I don't have any set number of like the top 10 countdown of Gary's biggest. I don't have that. I have I'm just gonna kind of go with it and see where we go. So I'm doing another episode from my car. I actually enjoy this a lot because while I'm driving, I have just the ability to talk to you and just have use the time to its fullest. So if you hear any background noise, it is just because I'm driving. If you hear a police siren, I am probably not having the best day. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing I would say that I learned, and I'm just going to kind of, again, as they come to me, just kind of throw them out there, is I always wanted to grow a bigger business. And I have to say that as time went on and life went on, I just kind of took on more of a minimalist viewpoint. I have definitely changed what I view as success. So, I think early on, any entrepreneur, there's visions of big. It's visions of big. That tends to be the end game. We have a way as people to always be adding and adding and adding. And like I said, I have developed sort of this love of kind of subtraction, this desire to subtract instead of add all the time. Because sometimes, and I've said this in a past episode, is that similar to like when you're making maple syrup and you have tons of sap and you boil it down and you get just this little bit of maple syrup. That's sort of how we should be looking at our life and our business, is that what can we boil it down to? What can we get to, get rid of all the abundance, all the extra, and just get down to the real good part. And I just found that I was always sort of desiring a bigger business. I imagined multiple, a team of people, maybe multiple teams, maybe multiple locations, all those big ideas, and I think that is where you begin to lose your essence. Not that big is bad, not that growing a business to a large scale is a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think a lot of people, that's the goal. And I think that's the wrong goal. It's oftentimes it's make a lot of money and grow, and to do that, you assume you have to grow a really big business to make a lot of money. My dad told me once, this was, long ago, he said that he actually, because at one point he had a team of, I think at one point maybe 6 to 8 guys working for him. That was probably the biggest that the family business was probably at that point. And then he downsized it at one point to pretty much just himself again. And he told me once that he actually was happier when it was small. He was happier, and he made more money. And I said, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, I made more money. He was like, the business maybe didn't make more money, but I made more money. I wasn't paying it out to everybody, because when you have employees and you have all the overhead, you end up just kind of giving all the money away. So you're making more, but yet you're paying out more. And he said that he preferred it being small. He liked having the simplicity of that. And at the time, I think when he said that, I was still in the kind of the growth mindset of like, let's grow this thing, let's get bigger and bigger. So that was kind of like, oh, Dad's on his way out anyway. He's retiring, and it's just, it's just him kind of talking about it, now that life is beating him up, So simple sounds better to him. But for me, I'm taking, life by the horns, and I'm going to really go after this thing. Well, there was a lot of wisdom in that. And I think that it took time for me to learn it and realize it, that big is not always the goal, or should not always be the goal. Bigger is not always better. Really, what most people are after is freedom. And they don't know it. They don't reflect enough to know that that's the thing that they really want, is freedom. And sometimes it takes decades to realize it, that it's not about making a fortune. It's about having freedom. Because it's, a rich man who works constantly to stay rich is actually a slave. Is actually in bondage. They may disagree, you may disagree, but that's how I view it. That's how I take it. For me, rich is having enough to support my family and give them a life that is safe and secure, and a sense of just stability. It's not about spoiling the heck out of all the kids. It's not about, living some lavish lifestyle. That's not my desire. That might be yours. I mean, maybe you do want to spoil your kids and live a lavish lifestyle. If you do, I'm not sure refinishing furniture is necessarily the best route to get there, but that's not my goal. My goal is to just have my kids feel safe, secure, and stable. Same with my wife. That's what I want for my family. And then within that, some freedom to be able to be around and be available. And just, not just watch my kids grow up, as if it's on fast forward where it's just happening so quickly, but really be there to savor moments and be a part of it. So that's just me though. Again, everyone's different, and people's values are different. People's goals are different, but that's for me, freedom of being with my family. It's beyond my family. It's being available for other people. I'm someone who, likes to be that person that can be called. If I have a friend who's struggling with something or needing, just needing someone, I like to be someone that they can call. And I have not always been that person. I've not always been available. And even there are days where I can't be available, but I like to strive towards that as a goal. So again, I've said this, I believe, in past episodes, but it's important to almost reverse engineer what your business and life looks like. You start with sort of what you hope for, and then you work your way backwards and reverse engineer it. But what's really important is that you reflect on what you really want. It's not just, don't just say, oh, I want lots of money, or, oh, I just want, the easy answer. Really think about the heart, like the core of the idea, the core of the vision, That's important because that will help to clarify what it is you do and how you do it. So for me, I think keeping things simpler became very valuable to me, that I wish I could go back and just not waste so much time trying and striving to grow something bigger, but that I could really grow it deeper and better in the ways that I've learned really matter, and not just in like fluffy ways, if that makes sense. The other thing that goes along with that is, at one point I decided to open up a store. I opened up a gallery, I called it. And I loved that season in a lot of ways. I loved the interactions with customers coming in. I loved being sort of, viewed as an artisan that people love to talk to and hear about, projects that I've worked on and was working on. I liked that whole era, except that I barely sold anything in the store, and the store just took up time and money and a lot of energy, and then ultimately I closed it after just a couple years. Do I regret it? I don't want to say I regret it. I want to say that I learned from it. I had a lot of great interactions and relationships were built there. I enjoyed it. So sometimes mistakes can sort of have two sides. A mistake can be a mistake that did not play out well, but also, you can find that silver lining. But I do see I see so many furniture flippers. I think more so in like the mid-century modern market. I think a lot of those resellers, and maybe you're one of them, you are a creative, and being a creative, that's what drew you into mid-century modern specifically, because I think that it speaks to the creative audience, is that era of furniture. I just find that, at least right now, it seems like that is, when you're talking about sort of the artistic or creative type, they're drawn to that era of furniture. But I'm finding that a lot of those creatives have sort of more of an artist mindset. A lot of them have art in their, in their background. They're just, whatever, it's graphic design, photography, painting, music, whatever it might be. There's some sort of art in their background, in who they are. And so I think that the romance and the desire to open a store is just so big. There's something about it, to be able to have that little piece of real estate and have people come in and decorate it and, pick the music that's going to be playing on there and host the events. And there's just something that's really romantic about that. And it is. It's probably the reason why I wanted a gallery. I'm a musician. I am a creative. I feel like that is probably one of the reasons why I was drawn to it as well. But I do see a lot of people who just dive into the idea of opening up a store or a retail space, and they do not count the cost. They do not count the cost. A lot of those creatives are also freedom hunters. Like, they really desire freedom, which is one of the reasons why they got into furniture reselling and flipping, or vintage, because it gave a sense of freedom. Go out and, hunt for these things, bring them back, redo them, sell them, whatever else, curate it all. There's a sense of freedom in all of that. And the retail space, I advise you, if you're considering it, to seriously count the cost, because it's a very, very different animal. And I enjoyed that season, but again, if I could have that time back and have used that time differently, now, knowing what I know now, I would absolutely want to get that time back. It was a cool time. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. I had a lot of fun. But when I look at, what it gained me and how it moved the needle, it really didn't move the needle that much. It really didn't. A lot of it was just vanity. It wasn't It wasn't profitable. It didn't give me more freedom. If anything, it took freedom away. So that's something I would change. I would not open a retail space. I would really keep my operations as lean as possible. And I think today, at that time, I think it was sort of like a pivot point. I was not as active on social media. I mean, Facebook, yes, but I just feel like it was sort of there has been a big pivot since then, where now you can really operate so easily online and, showcase what you have and really build a community and have sort of that virtual storefront without needing to get tied up in a physical space. So I love the romance of a brick and mortar. I think that given certain circumstances, if there's a scenario that makes it work really well, then it's a great thing. I hate that we've lost those downtowns in a lot of places, and so I definitely understand why people are drawn to it, but I definitely think that there's got to be, and there probably will be, or there already is forming a hybrid model of some kind that people are figuring out, where they can kind of somehow bridge the gap between that virtual interaction online and a physical interaction in person. So that would be one thing I would change, is just keep the business simple on the refinishing end. Also just keep it simple in general as far as not opening up a retail space, and keeping it just leaner, just less things to have to focus on and put my all into, because you want to put your all into whatever you're doing. And so sometimes we overextend ourselves and we can't give it our all, so we end up not really achieving the vision. The store doesn't quite turn into what we hoped it would, because we don't picture in our minds the worst case scenarios. There's problems no matter what you do, so you can't hide from problems, but sometimes you want to leave space so that when problems come, you have the bandwidth to be able to take care of them and not feel completely overwhelmed. So that is something I would advise on, or that I would share that I would change and do differently. Another thing I would do differently, I think, would be, this is a practical one, but I would have a space that everything is on wheels. I know that's not super exciting to say out loud, but I found probably not too late, but later in my time, was just have everything be mobile and flexible. Flexibility. I think that really helps you operate and be flexible with different projects that come in. So I later designed tables out of this pipe that's especially big in Japanese manufacturing. I believe it's called Gemba pipe. Some people call it's fast pipe, or there's maker pipe. It's just connectors to put either special coated pipe together, or you could also use the conduit or the electrical tubing you can get at any home improvement store. But you build whatever you want. You just cut the pipe to different lengths, and you build tables, you build anything, whatever you want. You just buy the fittings to make it work. Well, when I switched over and started to do that, it was like such a game changer, because now suddenly, I had it so that, I had these small, reasonable sized work tables that were good for working on a chair or an end table, something small. But then you could link them together and make a much larger table. And now you could, have that, and as soon as you were done, you could take it apart again. I liked that if you realized that you designed it wrong, you could take it apart, and all those parts could be reused. So I just liked it. It was an investment up front, which I'll throw that in as a bonus tip. Don't be afraid to invest in smart concepts, time-saving concepts. Sometimes you have to spend some money to make some money. And sometimes there's ways to do it inexpensively, but sometimes doing it on the cheap actually just bites you in the butt later. So be willing to, if it's a concept that will really help you and save you time and make your life and your operations easier, just invest in it. That's worthwhile. So I did invest in these things, and there was some cost associated with it, but I never regretted it. I loved that I had locking casters. They come, there's these special locking casters that come with the system, and you can put them in there so when you get it in place, you can lock it. And I don't know, I just loved it. That's the way my brain wanted it to be. So I love that. But everything on wheels, and also no walls. I didn't like walls. I thought walls were very limiting. If you have a space that's got lots of rooms and doorways and things to go through, it just becomes really cumbersome. So I preferred a space that was wide open, where you could either put up temporary partitions if need be, or just leave it open. It depends on what you're doing, but just I liked the flexibility that an open space gave me. So yeah, that is something that I would definitely encourage you to consider is flexibility in all that you're doing. So things on wheels, no walls, stuff like that. And then I'm approaching my home, so that's kind of my cutoff for this episode. I try to limit these episodes to the drive home. But I would say the last thing I would do would be to take care of my health more. And I will say that because, we are sponsored by Stripwell, this will sound like kind of a sneaky pitch for Stripwell QCS and all that. Take it for however you want, that's fine. But in general, I wish I just used safer products across the board. QCS didn't exist. I was using methylene chloride-based furniture strippers that were very dangerous, and people are still using them, and I'm seeing a resurgence in people, promoting them and again, focusing on how fast to get a project done when you're, what are you sacrificing to do that? I just feel like even some of the finishes and how people apply them, the PPE, like the taking care of yourself, wearing a respirator, wearing dust protection, just all these different things that I took for granted for years and just kind of acted like I was invincible. I really wish I could go back and just use more caution. If I had to use something dangerous, just to be very careful and use the right safety protocol. But if I could replace it with something, then all the better. Just get it out of my life altogether. So that is something I would definitely consider as a change I would implement. But yeah, as I approach home, I mean, those are three things. I mean, there's probably more. I'll probably do another episode and highlight some others, but those are three that kind of came to mind on this drive. And hopefully they speak to someone and they help someone. But definitely, join in the conversation on our social media, as we post clips from this episode or whatever else. I would love to hear if any of you have been in the business for a long time and have learned things that have, changed your outlook and things that you would do differently. So anyway, hopefully that helps somebody, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will catch you next time.
The Flipstration podcast is sponsored by Stripwell. Stripwell makes the QCS line of products. If you're looking for a furniture stripper that is safe for you, safe for your projects, and safe for the planet, then look no further than QCS Finish Remover and the QCS Surface Cleanser. That is the QCS system, and that is what you're looking for. So check it out at stripwell.com, and be sure to subscribe to the Flipstration podcast.